Welcome and blessed Samhain, friends, or better known as Happy Halloween. I couldn't resist the chance to be extra spooky. I've had a lot of fun working on this project with all its little details and giving several new things a go, so let's get started. To create the underbust corset pattern, I used masking tape on the doll base, then transferred the design onto paper before adding seam allowance and cutting it out of some soft minky material and the centrepiece out of a dusky purple taffeta. With everything cut out, it's time to sew the back pieces to the side pieces before sewing the centrepiece, sewing in some sparkly cord to give the illusion of corset strings. Taking a long strip of black chiffon and folding it in half, I sewed a running stitch along the top and bottom edges, which I then used to gather material, creating an even ruched look, and attached it along the top edge of the sides and centre. Making a quick template, I cut it out of more black chiffon, heat sealed the edges to prevent them from fraying, before sewing it to the bottom of the corset to create the upper skirt. Taking a long strip of the dusky purple taffeta, I carefully heat sealed the hemline to prevent it from fraying. Taking some shimmery organza, I lay the taffeta on top before folding over and sewing the top edge to create the waistband. Taking some black lace, I used it to hem the organza, making sure to line up the bottom of the lace with the hem of the purple layer, and sewing up along the back centre seam. Taking a piece of elastic, I thread it through the waistband before sewing it closed and testing the fit on the doll. Since it keeps riding up, I take a piece of ribbon and create a loop by sewing it to the centre front and centre back of the skirt. I place the skirt underneath the corset and I just love how much it's already coming together. Time to create some cute puffy sleeves. Taking more of the organza and chiffon, I cut out some rectangular shapes and sealed the edges before sewing them together to create tubes. I also cut some pieces of elastic which will help create the puffy look. After sewing an elastic around one edge of the chiffon and one edge of the organza, I layered them together before taking the final elastic to sew both sleeve pieces together. I love the way the organza and chiffon look layered together, and the sleeves really help to pull the corset and skirts together. For her stockings, I started by cutting 2 long rectangles from a white four-way stretch jersey fabric and evenly marking out stripes. Taking acrylic paint in purple, blue, red and green, I set to painting in the stripes. I didn't have a particular order in mind for the colours, just that I wanted to mix up the combination each time. I left the last 2 stripes blank and painted the other stocking. For the second stocking, I switched the colours around. The key to retaining the stretch of the fabric and the paint not cracking or flaking is to use heat to seal in the pigment of the acrylic paint. Using the 2 remaining stripes, I folded them over and sewed along the edge to create the top hem. With them now hemmed, I flipped the fabric so it was inside out before pinning it closed along the leg of the doll so that it would fit before removing it and sewing along the pin line, trimming off the excess and repeating for the other side. For her boots, I found a free pattern online which I shall link below. I scaled it down to fit before cutting the pieces from some black high velvet fabric. Taking the front and the tongue, I sewed them together. Taking the sides, I sewed them together along the centre strip to create the main body of the boots. Taking the front piece and the main body of the boot, I sewed them together to form one piece. Then taking one of the card insoles and placing it inside, I glued the fabric around it to form the boot. To finish off the boots, I glued down some card on the outside to form the sole, before gluing ribbon around the edge to neaten them up and painting the bottoms black. I laced them with purple thread and shortened the tongues of the boots and folded the upper part over, adding a little bit of glue to hold the shape and adding some little roses to really finish them off. Using some wire and masking tape, I used them to flesh out the base shape I would need to create her hat. Using a pattern I bought on Etsy a few years ago, I've put that link below too. I scaled it down to the size needed with the help of the wire frame and cut it out of the same high velvet I used for the boots. Placing the finished sides in, I sewed the outer edge of the brim and the centre seam on the hat. After flipping them right side out, I placed the outer wire from the frame inside the brim, which will mean I'll be able to pose it before sewing the main part of the hat to the brim. Time to decorate. I had a lot of fun layering the little flowers together to create the centerpiece with the bow, and I added a little stuffing into the end of the hat to help fill it out and keep its shape. I printed this cute cauldron on my 3D printer and set to work painting the main body black. It's thanks to the support of all of you at MegaCon that I was even able to purchase a 3D filament printer, and I've been having a lot of fun playing with it, though there have been ups and downs. I found the cauldron on Layers and Green's Patreon when I was looking up different 3D printer files. I painted the skull silver before setting it aside to dry. Once the base layer is dry, I dry brush silver over the main body to pull up the details on the surface, as well as adding a little shading to the skull. I also added some shading to the stones at the bottom, as well as a little yellow gold to give them the illusion of being hot. I found this potion shell collection for free on Cult3D and it was just so perfect I couldn't resist. After separating all the pieces, it's time to give them some colour, starting with the frame, shelves and drawers. Let's give these bottles and books some colour. I've already reassembled the shelves, so using little bits and bobs I fleshed them out. I made a little dresser cloth for the top to cover the uneven surface, and it was a lot of fun working out all the little placements for each piece and making different combinations. Using another layers in green file, however, I stopped the print after a few layers in order to just have a small frame, which I'll be using to create a stained glass window. To make it a little easier to draw the design, I traced the outline of the window onto some acetate with a Sharpie. Taking a scrap piece of acetate and using my Pro markers, I tested the best way to apply colour to the acetate while maintaining the transparency. I did it this way since I want to do a design, not just block colour, which is why I'm not using resin. I also used it as a chance to decide on which colours I wanted to use in the design. Making a duplicate of the final design and the colours I decided I wanted to use, I used the duplicate to map out and decide how I wanted the finished window to look. I got a little carried away and forgot to press record when finishing the overall set. For the cauldron, I used cotton wool to create the look of it bubbling over, using watered down acrylic paint to give it colour and sprinkled glitter to give it a little magic, and an old chopstick for a mixing stick. I used the extra larger bottles for extra decoration to fill out the surrounding area. For the walls, I used cardboard, which I placed a notch into each piece in order to slot them together, and used patterned backing paper to create the wallpaper, as well as doing the same for the floor. For her hair, I started by gluing wefts to a wig cap, starting at the back and working my way around and up to the part line. Shifting to the front, I started applying the wefts which would later be used to form her bangs. After using a little heat to style the top layer of the bangs down, it's time to fill in the main part line, using a little heat to encourage it to lay in the right direction once the glue was dry. Filling in the blank space with some extra wefts. Now that she looks like Cousin It, let's get styling. I start by sectioning out her bangs from the main part of her hair before turning her around and parting the main section. And then I changed my mind about how I want to style her hair so many times that I actually lost count. But in the end, I decided to do 2 small braids on either side, which I then used to create a 4-way braid. trimming off the ends to give a neater finish. Moving back to styling her bangs, I cut them longer than I needed before trimming them down to the length I want. Taking some eye blanks I made with white resin, I fill in the main colour of the irises with acrylic paint. Using a darker tone around the outer iris and blending it out with the main colour to give more depth. Using a little bit of black acrylic paint, I added the pupils before I filled them in with clear UV resin, adding some fine glitter to add a little extra sparkle. I used a little extra bit of clear resin to dome them once I'm satisfied with how they look. I start by applying blushing to her cheeks, nose, forehead and chin. Taking a blue pastel in a similar shade to the eyes and hair, I added it to her lids for her eyeshadow. Using a pinkish red shade for her lip. Taking a brown pencil, I sketch in the details for her eyeliner. Switching to a red pencil, I add a little more detail for her lips. And a neutral peach tone for her waterline. Finally mapping out her eyebrows with a light brown, as always being the bane of my existence with face-ups when trying to get them even. I then went over them with a light blue once I'm happy with the shape. Finally taking some pearly shimmers to her lids and cheeks to give her a little shimmer. Starting by trying to add more blue tones to the brow, I try to build up more pigment. Using the same blue, I use it to add more colour to her lids, take a darker shade to the outer edges and white to the inner edge to create a bold but subtle gradient. Taking the red pencil once more, I build up the colour and a little more detail to her lips. Returning to her eyes, I build up the pigment of her waterline, before using black to darken her eyeliner. Not satisfied with the green hue of her brows, I decided to crack out the paints, using the same colour I used for her irises. Taking black acrylic, I darkened her eyeliner. Once the acrylic is dry, I added some lashes. All that's left now is to pop in her eyes and get her dressed. Hope you're as excited as I am to see her all finished. Meet Juniper! I love how well all of her outfit came together in the end, and it was a lot of fun working on a larger BJD. I also enjoyed scaling down patterns like the one for her hat, which I've used to make my own hat, and it's just interesting to see how it translates on a smaller scale. I loved being able to 3D print extra details, as it also meant I had more time to work on the doll herself. What do you like most about Juniper? I think her hat and boots are my favourite pieces, especially as I've never made boots this detailed before. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until next time!
Hello. Can I have your belly? Yeah. Big fur.